Chapter 6. As if seeing the bear wasn't enough excitement for one morning, there's more up ahead. Red and blue lights flash. My brothers dash toward a cop car. A police officer has one of the cloches' trucks pulled over. The officer is standing on the road writing out a ticket. "You truckers have got to slow down," I hear him say to the driver. "This is not a demolition derby. You're going to kill somebody." He tears the ticket from a pad and reaches it up to the truck driver. "Sir," the trucker says, "I understand your position, but you should take it up with our boss. We get paid by the load, and we got to move these pipes. The boss says he'll replace me in a second if I don't make 10 runs a day." The officer shakes his head at the trucker. "Was he bad?" Miko asks the cop. "Are you going to arrest him?" "Can I help?" asks Alexei. "Can I do the cuffs?" The cop ignores them and checks his watch. "Hey, you kids better hurry. Bell's about to ring." He uses his thumb to point toward the school. "Yes, sir," I say. "Sorry, sir." I push Miko and Alexei out ahead of me. Alexei darts away from me and toward the officer. Before I can call him back, he's telling the officer, "Give him a ticket for making the road all gloopy and for making me wake up all the time, too." The truck driver releases some kind of air pressure from his brakes and drowns Alexei out. The police officer leans down, pats Alexei on the head, and turns him back toward me. "When I grow up, I'm going to be a cop and give tickets to all those guys all day long," he tells me. "That's great, Alexei," I tell him, "but first, you have to pass elementary school." When we get to school, I drop the boys off at their classrooms and then head to mine. Even though it's well past 8, Mr. Flores hasn't started teaching class yet. He doesn't even look up from his laptop when I come in. El Comso glances up at me from her reading, then at the clock, and shakes her head. Of course, she's going ahead of the chapters we were assigned in the book called Hatchet. Her English wasn't very good when she first moved to Coulter, but now English is her best class. Whenever there's a writing contest at school, El Comso wins. She smacks the book shut and cleaves it to her chest. "The next chapter is so exciting," she says. "Brian gets caught up in a tornado. I'm dying to see a tornado. I can't believe I've lived here 4 years and still nothing." I want to tell her about the bear or Mark Richard, but she keeps talking. "I hope he meets a girl out there in the wilderness. Wouldn't that be a great plot twist?" El Comso opens the book again and flips ahead a few more chapters, skimming the pages. El Comso talks about love, marriage, and babies a lot. She wants to be a romance novelist one day. Sometimes it drives me kind of crazy, but she doesn't have as many things to worry about as I do. Other than her love of love, we have a lot in common. Neither of us have a phone. Neither of us listens to the music everyone else does. We both have unusual families. Her dad is a taxi driver in a city 4 hours away. He stays there for 4 or 5 days and then comes home for a few days, then goes back to work. Her mom takes care of the kids and is home while he's gone. Margot and her friends are smelling each other's hair. "New shampoo," says Margot, "green apple scented." She looks over at El Comso. "Sometimes I wish I could be like El Comso and not ever have to wash my hair. I wish I could keep it covered up all the time so no one would ever know if I did or didn't wash my hair." Margot often has a snake tongue, but lately she's been extra venomous. El Comso pushes her chair back as though she's going to stand up and let Margot have it. But before she can, Mr. Flores stands up. Okay, he says. "Boring business stuff first." He picks up the attendance pad and scans the heads in the room, stopping at Mark Richard's empty desk and chair. "Hey, where's my main man, Mark Richard?" Margot raises her hand and flails it around. "Mr. Flores, I know where he is." "Where's that?" Mr. Flores scratches his head with the pencil. "He's in foster care," she says, acting proud that she has inside information. "Mark Richard burned his own house down." She rolls her eyes like Mark Richard is the biggest idiot on the planet. "What?" Mr. Flores says. "Shut up, Margot," says El Comso. But Margot keeps talking. "Mark Richard's mom ran away, so Mark Richard's dad went to bring her back home." Sometimes I wish Margot would fall into a snake pit. I give her my worst dirty look. "Don't look at me like that, Fern," she says. "You're probably just worried because everyone knows you might be taken away next." My face burns. El Comso slaps her desk. "I mean it, Margot. You better be quiet." Hey, shouts Mr. Flores, knock it off. I am furious and curious and scared all at once. I want Margot to shut up too, but I also want to know what happened. How did he burn his house down? Asks another kid. Margot puffs up with importance. Well, she says, my mom says that Mark Richards sat his cat on the couch and put a candle flame to a wood tick on its ear. But Mark Richard didn't know that his mom had doused the couch in kerosene to kill bed bugs. The cat leaped off the couch, knocked the candle out of Mark Richard's hands, and up went the flames. Mark Richard got Gary and the cat out, and they all got picked up by that county lady. That would be Miss Tavel. Poor Mark Richard, Alcomso whispers. Yeah, I say, I saw the house this morning. Oh no, says Mr. Flores, I wish I had known. I'd adopt that little guy in 2 seconds. Margot taps the toe of her shoe on the floor. You can't do that, Mr. Flores, she says. My mom says you have to have a nice house to have children. You can't just live out of a camper. Margot's mom has been trying to get Mr. Flores fired because he showed us a video filmed inside of a hogging operation where all the pigs were full of sores and dying from disease and mistreatment. Margot Peterson's dad owns the 5th largest hogging operation in the country. Mr. Flores sighs. Let's move on to the next thing. Topics for the STEM fair. Has everyone decided on theirs? I have, Margot says. I'm going to make a volcano. Boring, says Mr. Flores. Pick something else. Really think. Think about something that affects you or your family or your community. Mr. Flores explains that the STEM fair will be held at the end of the month, and parents and neighbors are invited to attend. He asks a few other kids and writes some topic ideas on the whiteboard and nearly loses his mind with excitement when one boy says he's going to take apart a carburetor and explain how it works. Awesome, he says. I dig it completely. I love when I get to learn something from you brainiacs. I think I'm doing fracking, Alcomso says. My dad is getting a new job with Clochis so he can be closer to home. The corner of Mr. Flores's mouth turned down. Then he opens his mouth, but no words come out. He is? I say, why didn't you tell me? Alcomso shrugs. I just found out this morning. He starts in a few weeks. My mom is so happy, and Dad says he'll have more time to help out around the house. Alcomso has a new little sister. Caltumo is her name. She's pretty much the cutest thing I've ever seen. She's also a lot of work. But that means that Alcomso's dad will be working for the company that plans to put the wastewater pond right into Milner's woods. What about my grove? I say to Alcomso. Clochis wants to cut it all down. Well, she says, my family needs my dad home more. Yeah, I say, but my family needs the woods for food. Alcomso and I stare into each other's eyes. Several seconds pass. Margot coughs a fake cough. My dad says fracking's going to bring lots of new jobs to Coulter, she says. Fern, maybe your dad should just get a job with Clochis too. Alcomso's eyes widen. Mine do too. It's almost like for a brief second, Alcomso and Margot are on the same side. And I am on the other side. I turn around in my chair and I face the front. Fern, says Mr. Flores. My face gets hot. I hate being called on. Yeah? Your project, he says. Have you decided on one? I don't know yet, I mumble. Well, you keep thinking, he says. He points at me with his pen. I know you'll think of something great. You're a born naturalist. I muster a tight smile. I don't know what a naturalist is exactly, but it sounds like someone who loves the outdoors. Anyway, he says, let's move on and hit the bird-watching trail. Everybody ready? He puts a pair of binoculars around his neck. Alcomso stands and pushes in her chair. This is going to be so fun, she says, isn't it? I try my best to smile. Are you mad at me because my dad got that job? Because you shouldn't be, Fern. Everything is going to be fine, she says. I nod, even if I don't believe it. I'm not mad at you, I say. I just have a lot on my mind. I look over at Mark Richard's empty desk. I feel bad for Mark Richard. Me too, she says. But he'll be back, I'm sure. She puts her arm around my shoulder. It feels heavy. End of chapter 6.